Welcome to a fine gaming experience, everyone. It's This Way Lies Madness, also known as Bricks.
Hi, I'm Ice. I'm here too. Ha ha ha. And today we're going to be jumping into the Coral Highlands.
Exciting times.
Speaking of exciting, if you notice in the upper right corner here, we can feed our beasties.
Oh, good lord. No, don't spray me with needles. Okay, good.
Whenever a cactuar is spinning right in front of your face, you do need to get concerned.
I'll tag along.
These ones are your friends, though, because you shoved them into a net and put them in your apartment.
Greetings.
We got a few more extra quests we can still do here. Another tree expansion one.
Very often when you open up new areas or get new abilities in the game to kind of open up your options, you will find a ton more quests, and it can be daunting. Those of you who play a lot of role-playing games, you'll understand that whenever a new hub is opened up or a new area is opened up, this is pretty common. But don't expect to do them all at once. Generally, you can nail a couple of them once you get used to what's new.
And some of them are like this, where she just opens up more stock, which is pretty useless. I don't even show it off, it's that useless.
Yeah, I don't really understand why there are options on purchasing weapons, seeing as making them is so easy. I guess if you don't want to do any gathering, but then again, if you're not making equipment, what are you doing? Wow, the potbelly on that armor, that's great.
This is quite the bulky armor on the male, that is for sure.
If I remember, they put all that weight into the legs to give those hips that definitely do not lie.
This is what we got from doing the mining on Zora. It gave us dragonite ore and whatnot, so we can get these unique pieces of gear here. Nothing too special except for capacity boost. And that gives a couple weapons a few more power-up options, I should say.
And like most of the gear, a lot of it is actually excellent against the specific boss that you're trying to fight. So the heavy armor actually works really well against Zora with a lot of the equipment and abilities on it. Ooh, one of my favorites.
Time to give our first ranged weapon a go. And I do kind of take the powerful option with the blast bow here, but it's not that powerful considering how the ranged weapons work.
And the bow is an excellent weapon overall. It has some extremely nice nuances to it, and two of the things about it which make it so much fun to use for new players is you don't have to worry about sharpening, and you actually don't have to worry about ammo. The normal ammo you'll get with a lot of the other guns is good enough to do most quests, but the normal ammo on the bow, when you don't have coatings on, is extremely good and is mostly just determined by your bow's attack stat.
I was debating taking off the sharpening pants because we don't really need it at all when you have a bow, but it's not really necessary to change it out for only 2 episodes, I thought.
I do like the folding design on that bow that kind of pops out the shoulders when you pull it off your back.
The transformations on a lot of the weapons are pretty cool.
And I'll actually give a little quick rundown on the bow once we make it through this long walk here. We'll have something to talk about.
Let's start by finding a way forward.
I find this a little interesting because this is just the path Zora carved through the mountain, and why are they telling us to move this far into the game? I don't get that.
This may have been something they originally planned as a starting element or maybe a demo option.
We head this way.
That's very possible. I can certainly see a part like this where we see the aftermath of Zora's first appearance.
Yeah, the fissure is actually pretty incredible. They want to show you what these huge elder dragons can do. Of course, we find all sorts of NPCs looking around as we climb up.
Well, this is quite the sight. If people are going to go visit the Grand Canyon, well, Zora just made one.
Mm-hmm.
This is the power of an elder dragon.
Yes, it is. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the bow, and this is the best time as we're moving towards a new location. The bow is excellent because the only real thing you need to manage on the bow is your stamina, but because you do have to manage stamina, it is something that is absolutely a necessity. You do not want to be caught without stamina because you won't be able to roll out of the way, and a lot of your more powerful shots use it as well. The bow has a lot of measures of multi-attacks and other abilities. It can drop rocks on the enemy's head. It has piercing shots, all sorts of really excellent things you can do with the bow. And it's an excellent beginner weapon. I put it up there with the equivalent of the sword and shield.
Yes, the bow is a fantastic beginner weapon. It's not the most powerful weapon we will have, but it is very versatile and pretty forgiving in a lot of ways too.
Plus, it comes with an excellent high-powered attack that you can practice, the Dragon Piercer, which is a great way to hit those monsters that you've knocked down. It's piercing, so you want to line it up kind of like your piercing pods. You want to shoot it from like tip to wing to tip of wing, or head to tail or tail to head. You want to hit it as many parts as you can, but you can knock parts off, you can shred monsters and break tons of things with it.
Come on, this way.
It's time to save our handler yet again.
And the Coral Highlands is actually a gorgeous place. I love the design. It's like a underwater location that has been emptied out.
Indeed, it's actually my favorite location. I love the way it looks. I love the native creatures here. And I was even thinking last night, like, how can a coral land exist on the surface, not underwater? But the winds are so strong here, and there's so much life, that the coral will just take it out of the air, basically, in this area. It's a pretty interesting take on it.
Once we learn about some of the other areas here, we'll find all sorts of interesting things concerning the different areas connected to the Coral Highlands. The first two areas are not really connected to the main story, but the next few that we go to are actually all connected to each other in a very symbiotic way.
Which I quite like. Having ecology put into the game like that is an excellent element, I find.
And I love this area. I love the research base, but unfortunately it's kind of a little bit of an out-of-a-way location, and we never actually go back to it. You do for some side quests and some small things, but it doesn't become like a new main hub. You can't change it to your main hub, and it just doesn't have the things you need. It doesn't have your tree, your weapon forging, doesn't have your chef there. There's a lot of things you're missing.
Well, actually, one of the things they did add here is a smithy. I show it off later on, but they added a couple things, I believe, with Iceborne to this area.
Well, then I take back my my problems with this place. I'll have to have a look at that. Yeah, I haven't got into Iceborne yet. It's something that we're definitely looking at doing down the line, but at this point in time, I figure there's enough of this game to show before we even touch the Iceborne content.
Oh, I could be doing many, many episodes before we touch Iceborne. We've just dipped our finger into the game, basically.
At this point, we're probably maybe an eighth through the main story, and then after the main story is probably an extra 3 times that size of content to deal with. Events, special things going on, super battles, all sorts of great things.
I'm not going to show off all the events, but definitely some of the more interesting ones coming up. Or if they give me some interesting goodie. Some of those special workshop weapons we can get from the event quests are amazing.
Oh yeah. In fact, the best greatsword in the game, the Elder Melder.
Gives us something very special here, our very first one. A charm.
Charms are very handy, especially when you need to fill blanks in your armor set, just to get a skill up just a little bit higher or give you a little bit of a boost you couldn't get with the armor you've got equipped.
Basically, charms just are an accessory with a skill on it. You can get different tiers of the skill and upgrade your charms. Basically, this first one only has defense boost, but we can get some very good ones later on.
If you get the special edition version of the game, you actually get a very nice charm to start that you can use for most of the majority of at least the first 25% of the game. Not that I'm recommending spending money on DLC items. That's my addiction. No one should subject themselves to it.
I've never been one for buying all the poses and alternate costume stuff.
Oh yeah.
And that's not me either. But if it's an item that gives me a small statistical advantage, I am all about that. I was notorious for the very first Dragon Age game. I think I unlocked every possible thing through every single different mini-game and online event, and oh man, they had so many different ways to get stuff, and I managed to get every single thing I could, including spending money to get stuff from another country you couldn't actually get where I lived at the time.
Oh my.
Oh yeah. Like I said, don't become me.
I did the same thing when I was playing Final Fantasy XI to some extent. They got a little DLC happy near the time I quit playing, just for alternate armors and whatnot that were very powerful.
And you're going to see some interesting little creatures right ahead here. These guys are awesome. These are wigglers.
I don't want to say they are a representative of the game, but they are definitely a type of mascot in some fashion.
They are. They are. There is actually a very famous content producer who makes a lot of Monster Hunter videos and also Dungeons & Dragons videos who uses the Wiggler head as their avatar in all of these videos. And yeah, eventually we're going to get something somewhat like that.
Those who have played the game know exactly what we're talking about. I find these interesting. If you go into certain tree trunks or hollows like this, and the screen goes dark like it did, that means opponents can't see you. So we are completely hidden from these guys.
Oh, here's the Dragon Piercer. Now you notice there was a charge up there. If you hold down your bow shot rather than just firing it instantly, you can charge up to 3 levels. And then once you hit that 3rd level, you hit 1 charge, then a 2nd charge, you can fire your Dragon Piercer for extra damage. Like I said, the bow is a great weapon. It will feel when you first play it like it's very powerful, but I guarantee the longer you spend with it, the more powerful it gets.
And Shamos are a little interesting. They behave in a lot of ways like the Jagras did, but they are actually a lot more aggressive. Normally a Jagras will start fleeing as soon as you kill 1 or 2 of them.
Watch that stamina bar. Oof. I gotta ask, did you eat before this quest?
I did not.
Extra challenging mode. Now there's 2 different shots for the bow. There's the standard straight ahead single shot, and then there's the spread shots. And you also notice there was this rock fall that was done just a little while ago. That rock fall is excellent because if you can land it on an enemy's head, it does KO damage and can actually knock an enemy out like a hit to the head from a hammer.
It's one thing I like about the bow is even though it is a piercing weapon, it's capable of cutting off tails, it's capable of knocking out monsters, it's very versatile.
And there's something the bow can do that not a lot of people know about. The bow can actually mount, and it doesn't need to require a jump. It's one of the few weapons in the game that has a special move that can mount. The move is terrible. It is only to be used for mounting, but it looks awesome. You basically leap forward with an arrow in one hand and go to stab it into the monster. If you get just the right angle, you can actually get off a mount.
Kind of waste my ghillie mantle here.
With the right weapon, this monster is not a big deal. With the wrong weapon, well, you're going to have a real good time. Keep in mind, shields can block that actual flash attack.
Whoa.
I always call him Tzatziki.
Hey, partner.
And we don't have to take him on right now. I am actually going to go to the end and kind of splice in when I fight him here.
Okay.
This quest is interesting because it's one of the exploration ones. You don't have to fight a single thing here. All you really have to do is just find that other campsite like it says on the right side there.
There's a lot of levels to the Coral Highlands. If you've done a lot of exploration in the Ancient Forest, it won't feel as bad, but it is still pretty different on the levels. In fact, I think this place has not just levels, but multiple sections that fall up and down that don't connect with each other. It is worth exploration because there's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of hidden secrets, hopefully some that we'll see. But it can be burdensome the first time you're here, especially down here in this area.
The amount of, like, special secrets and whatnot you can find here is very cool. I quite like this area for that.
You also like it because you're a hammer bro, and you love all the places you can slide on your butt.
This is very true. Not to mention all the cool wedge beetle slinging I can do around here. This is my favorite area for that.
When we get to the hammer, you'll see what I mean. Brix is very efficient at some specific moves for the hammer that make him very formidable. Now I've talked you up, you gotta look real good when you start playing with it, huh?
I hope I'm going to not be rusty when I pick it back up again. I've been goofing around with my heavy bow gun far too much. Now you have a set of binoculars that are almost useless. We can pull like a solid snake here and look at things from a distance, zoom in on it and whatnot. But there is a monster later on we want to hunt. I just shouldn't say hunt, we're trying to find. It's not a monster, it's a native creature. And it tends to hang out on top of other native creatures. I thought I would be smart and try to look at these creatures from a distance to spot them. And no, the binoculars don't actually show you zoomed in creatures like that.
No. That is what we're looking for. You want to hear that pop, pop, pop sound. On a little guy like this, you're not going to get a lot of hits off, but there are some much larger monsters or ones that have huge wingspan. You can get a lot of purpose out of that bow. Oh, you got to get behind it. You did. That almost has a 180-degree cone. It just barely reaches the edge. If you can get behind him, even if you're to the side, you're usually fairly safe.
It's a big radius, and what I like is when you're out of the radius like that, you get a good idea of how big the spread is on it. And one thing we haven't talked about is the coatings. There is various coatings each type of bow gets. Now, your bow might have a native property like this one does for blast. Oh, I was hoping to get that off.
Almost got it.
The bows are jacks of all trades because you can give them multiple status ailments, basically.
Most bows use at least 1 or 2 status elements, but there's some that I can actually use 3. Some will use the power coating, which this one's got power. Some will have special blast arrows and poison arrows, and there's paralytic arrows too, which are phenomenally good.
I was using the paralysis arrows early on, but Taziki is pretty immune to paralysis, sadly. Power coating just gives us more damage.
You can actually see that right there. You saw the cone, the actual flash on the screen.
One thing, too, I should point out is if you look at our targeting reticle, you'll sometimes see 1 circle, and sometimes you'll see 2. Now, every ranged weapon will have an ideal distance from the opponent you should be at.
It'll give you a bright orange to the reticle when you see that.
Yeah. Now, when I see that double circle, I know I'm in the right range. The problem I don't like with the close range coating is it severely decreases your range distance in exchange for giving it basically the power coating.
The one thing that is nice about the close range coating is every bow has it, and it is infinite. So it is almost like a mode you can go into. If you can't get a monster off you, switch to close range, pop off a couple quick shots and dodge around it, and you're going to do well.
Although you're basically trading one of your advantages of the bow, of being able to attack at long range for more damage.
Those shot spreads that you do, though, it's actually excellent with them. And as you can see, this bow has put this Taziki almost to rest.
I find Taziki is a bit of a glass cannon. He can do a lot of damage, but doesn't have a lot of hit points. These raptor-type opponents, generally I find go down fairly fast, but are those heavy hitter types.
There is a small opponent we're going to fight later on that's my worst nightmare, and We fought that one several times. You're actually very good against that specific monster. I'm talking about one of the later legendaries that we're going to end up taking on.
Oh, yes. One of my favorites.
Hey, partner.
And this is basically the middle ground for the Highlands here. We can go a lot higher up. It's almost insane how high up we can go in this area.
This is the camp I recommend to most people whenever you're doing the Highlands, just because you can get pretty much anywhere from here. There's only a few monsters, Ziki being one of them, that if you're hunting you want to start at the original campsite, but this should really become your preferred campsite.
I think we could build the camp here. Let's ask the head honchos. Sounds like
Yeah,
the
this is a
research base
great
has a new
campsite
desk.
for
Wanna go back and
especially the
check in?
bigger monsters later on that tend to hang out in the higher regions.
It's rather interesting here. We're not actually going back to Astera, we're going back to the research base.
I do find it kind of entertaining how unimpressed with us at first the head of the research base is. Mind you, we were knocked unconscious at the bottom of a ravine and dragged there by someone else, so...
We do a lot of getting smacked around by various things and being dragged somewhere by some helpful NPC. It's kind of half of our existence right now.
That NPC we saw, though, will be showing up more very soon in another area.
Yo.
My favorite area.
We're gonna have to hunt one more beastie here, though, before we can go to the Rodden Vale.
And I don't like how quickly they skip through these areas, but you will be going back to them quite a bit. And some people absolutely despise the Rotten Vale, so having the Coral Highlands to be able to go back to is a bit of a, I feel like a break for some. But no, I absolutely love the Rotten Vale. Love the design, love the way it feels.
It just has an environmental effect we'll cover when we get there that makes it more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The environmental effect we have to deal with in the Coral Highlands is the verticality of it. But we're about to get something quite neat to help us with that after these people are done talking.
They'll never be done talking.
The old man said hopes and blah 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 blah.
There is a lot of dialogue in this game, and I don't want to say it's useless, but a lot of it could be summed up much faster. They tried to build a story. Monster Hunter games aren't about the story, they're about the hunts. The story is we're monster hunters, and there's a monster we're hunting. That's it.
What's up?
What's up? This is the new guy.
Oh, wow.
So basically, yeah, he points out, like, we can't have a fire here on an airship, but he can just order stuff from the smithy for you. Although they still don't have a canteen here, so this is not a proper hub. I am hoping, though, this does get a little bit more importance with Iceborne.
We'll have to see.
And that gilded glider mantle we got there is quite interesting. It'll help us fly around a little bit when we get it.
It's not as good as all the other mantles you get, but the one thing that it does very well.
See, and the butterflies are hungry now. Well, I hope you all join us next time when we go back to the Coral Highlands. And take care, all.